My name is Kale. My major is I am in the grad program for secondary education. But when I was in undergrad, I had a minor in theater and a major in English. And I have been working in the theater department. This is my second year.
What is it like being a grad student and still working in the theater department?
Honestly, it's really fun, but it actually works really well because the hours are pretty much whatever I want them to be, except for the weekly costume meeting that I hold, and during shows, there's obviously a lot of set time, but my grad schedule is pretty movable, so having this job also be flexible means that I can come in and work when I need to. I do enjoy doing this job better as a grad student. I find it much less stressful than when I was a student.
You are a resident,
Yes.
which means, I think you said this, you have done, this is your second year of doing it, which means that you may have more skills than our other costume apprentice. How do your jobs differ, or what kind of skills do you have that you are teaching her as training her?
Essentially, I only had a few months of training because our resident just did one semester with myself and another apprentice, Yankelina, my queen. So I essentially just have been trying to replicate what she did have time to teach me in the first few months, and then also everything I've learned by making mistakes in the costume shop and during shows. So I essentially kind of give Susanna a guidelines of what I did last year, especially when Yankee wasn't here. So making sure, how that you're communicating with the designer, attending production meetings, holding fittings, making all of those forms, proper etiquette for renting and returning costumes, which have also changed, so that's all new. What the times to get here for shows, what to actually teach your team over a year. We have I've been following a loose same schedule every semester I've done this. I try to let her handle a little more of the actual show things, but right now my main goal this semester is to kind of just leave the costume shop in a better state for her to work with it over the next year.
You came into costuming with no prior experience of costuming, or did you have some skills?
I had pretty strong sewing skills. I knew how to work the sewing machine well and do a lot of basic alterations. I had been through Tech 1, so I did the costumes unit in that. But before that, I did not have a ton of experience with running a costume shop, although I had done so in high school and designed costumes for a show in high school. Not within doing run crew and taking care of all of the organization and work that comes with that at a more professional level, with a real costume shop and not a random room backstage at a high school.
Do you feel like your role is a lot of self-taught skills? You just kind of figure it out on your own?
Yeah, it is a lot of self-taught skills, because this is a program kind of run by students, especially we don't have a costume person who is our professor. It's a lot of Googling and texting my mom for laundry and clothes things.
Would you be able to estimate how many hours a week you work?
During the show, over 25 hours, sometimes more. On a double show and strike day, I tend to work a 12-hour day that day. And when not in a show, there's always at least 2 hours a week, one for my costume meeting and one for our resident meeting. Then usually I have some kind of side project I'm doing. Recently I was organizing all of the shoes, so I spent 9 hours on that in a week. Or if I'm trying to learn a new skill, maybe 2 to 3 hours. It really varies from week to week, but in show it's just a lot more of mandated time, and out of show it's whatever project I have time for and want to learn.
What kind of things do you do with your tech team?
So some of the things that I always do are, we do a little sewing seminar. We teach them 4 basic stitches, how to put on buttons, how to thread a needle, all the basics if they don't know it, although most of them have known it. We do, just today, we did how to take measurements and gave them all their own measurements. Sometimes we work with props.
I just wanted to say hi. Sorry, bye.
Bye, Hannah.
Bye, Hannah.
Sometimes we work with, like during a show, we'll have them do alterations or work with props on specific things they need. And we teach them how to set up the rack with the labels and the ditties, how to do the laundry, how to steam, how to iron. So yeah, sometimes we just try on costumes too, but that's a secret.
What kind of backstage help do you offer as a costume resident during a show?
Backstage, my team is kind of on reserve for anything costumes, hair, or makeup changes. So usually, almost every show I've done, there have been at least one or more quick changes or hair changes or need to take off or add makeup. Other things that we do are like emergency fixes, like if somebody would get a bloody nose, we would have to figure out like how to deal with that in the moment, or somebody's pants were to rip open, very plausible scenarios. We would have to fix that so the actors were acceptable to go out.
Do you have a favorite show that you helped with for costuming?
I'm probably gonna say it was Steel Magnolias, simply because that's the biggest role I've had in any show. It's the most hair trials, makeup trials, and quick change choreographing intense show I've done. It felt like I was getting the most experience and had the most responsibility, because I was doing a lot of that just on my own and with the other girl I was working with.
Do you have any costume horror stories?
Yeah, it was the first show I had ever worked on. It was like by myself, so it was The Miser, and my resident couldn't be there, so she was like, you can just do this show all by yourself today. And usually it wouldn't be that bad, except I dyed a shirt gray and left dye marks all over it on accident. So like it's like a pantomime show, so it has really crisp, like supposed to be starch white aspects of each costume, and like a very specific like older time period. I don't even know, 1800s something probably. And so Chris Ortiz, a past costume resident, had this very white shirt, and it got makeup on the collar, so we had thrown it in the wash, and you wash whites and colors separately. However, our dryer is kind of bad, so the shirt was still pretty damp when it came showtime. So I threw it in the dryer, just slightly damp, with some other slightly damp ditty bags full of like black socks and like black undershorts and things. The dye in like the pattern of a mesh laundry bag was slapped all over this shirt, and it was like very noticeable. And we did not have like a replacement shirt that fit the time period. We only had very modern white shirts, like a modern dress shirt, and it looked absolutely terrible. And we only had like an hour until the show when this happened, maybe less. So we stain removed it and like scrubbed it out and really wore down this shirt, and then we sushi rolled it, threw it in the dryer without anything else in it for like a few minutes, and then put it on him only slightly damp. And it was still kind of gray, but it was more white than it had been and acceptable for the rest of the shows. So it was bad. It was the first time I was ever by myself, and I ruined one of the costumes, so I was like freaking out.
As a former undergrad student at Gordon and also a gluten-free person, do you have any gluten-free suggestions for students on campus?
My favorite gluten-free food that they sell here are the muffins, specifically the chocolate chip or the white chocolate and raspberry ones. I lived off of those for 3 years because everything else kind of sucks. I have a favorite pair of shoes. Bam! Can you see these in the frame?
Yeah.
I'm gonna do like the Instagram people do, put my hand behind it. These are the shoes. I think that they were bought for a show before my time here, but I love them. They are exactly like 1 to a half size too small for me. I have tried to put them on more than once. It doesn't work, but I love the reptile skin. I love the color. I love the pointy toe. I love the knee-high boots, and I do think that they are perfect. But thank you, Sarah.
You're welcome, Kale. Thank you.